G'day everyone, welcome back. This is the second episode of Filmmakers After Dark. I have Mr. Brenton now. I might get your surname wrong. Is it Faole?
Faole.
Faole, okay. Mr. Brenton Faole, I'm with me tonight. How are you?
I'm good, man.
That's good.
I'm good. What have you been up to?
Oh, not a lot. Just chilling out. I had an injection in my ankle yesterday, so didn't do much yesterday. Just stayed at home.
What's the injection for?
I fell off a ladder 4 years ago doing electrical work, so it's basically to find out where they're going to give me surgery. So
Well, that was a silly thing to do. What did you do that for?
I just thought I'd see if I could bounce. No, I was wiring something up, and then the people where we were working, they went and took the extension ladder away, and when they brought it back, they hadn't tied it off, and so when I stepped on it, it come out, and I come down from 2 meters up on the concrete. So,
oh, bloody hell!
I've got to have my right shoulder operated on and right ankle operated on. So, I'm a human pincushion at the moment because I keep going back for injections because they're trying to work out where the pain's coming from. So,
well, I've got a hacksaw somewhere, man.
Yeah, I got a bone blade on my grinder. So. We'll see how we go. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you doing? How are you involved in the world of acting or directing?
Well, I'm a screenwriter, filmmaker, playwright, and theatre director as well. So
okay,
and I run a radio show.
Tell us a bit about that.
The radio show?
Yeah.
Well, it's community radio. It's Inspire Radio Online.
Mm-hmm.
They're in Rockingham here in WA, and every Thursday afternoon from midday till 3, I talk to people in the entertainment industry, whether they're filmmakers, directors, actors, playwrights, musicians, whatever, anyone who's in the entertainment industry. And I also play show tunes through that show as well. So,
okay.
yeah, and then I've also got the after that, I've also got a comedy show that I do, but that's basically just a lot of nostalgic comedy stuff like Abbott and Costello's Who's on First and all that sort of thing.
And so are you writing all these plays yourself, or are they from somewhere else and you're just putting them on?
Well, that radio show is just interviews. It's just interviews. So
okay. What about with the theatre? Are you write all them yourself as well?
I've only done one play that was written by myself, and I had 2 co-writers with that, just polishing some of the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a couple of years ago. We put that on, and that was called Love and Music, and that was co-written with Maisie O'Reilly and Oliver Tenby,
Okay.
and yeah, Fremantle Performing Artists, which is the theatre company that I run. We put that on in Maylands back in 2019, I think it was. Yeah, 2019, 2018, one of the two. 2019, I think it was.
Yeah, right. And so how does that and so what do you prefer? Do you prefer theatre or film?
I prefer film, but I've got, my root. I've got roots in film and in theatre, so I kind of I like both genres. I really don't have much of a preference. I've been in film since I was 10, whereas theatre, I've been in that since I was 17. So I'm now 51.
So how do you? So because I did a film in 2016, and when we cast, we had quite a few of the actresses or actors that were theatre come to film, and I found it was they're very big. Like I find theatre actors, the way they do it is very, and it's sort of harder to bring them down to like a screen level. Whereas if you get an actor, is it easier to bring them up to get a performance out of them?
I think it's easy to bring someone from film to stage.
Okay.
But I'm glad you mentioned that though, because there's a Michael Caine did a masterclass. Oh, I don't know how long ago, probably the 80s. It was just acting with Michael Caine, and he talked about Jack Lemmon.
Yep.
Now, Jack Lemmon was a theatre actor before he went to film. He was on Broadway and everything, and when he was, I don't remember what his first film was, but the director kept saying to him, bring it down, less, because in theatre you have to be big. You have to exaggerate everything. You have to exaggerate your voice. You have to exaggerate your emotions. You have to exaggerate your expressions, everything, because you need to be seen in back rows. And so Jack Lemmon was used to that, and you know, the director kept saying to him, less, Jack, less, and it got to the point Jack Lemmon turned around and said to the director, look, if I do any less, I'm not going to do anything at all. And the director says, now you've got it. So yeah, because when you're filming for screen or you know, whether it's for cinema or if it's for television, you don't need to be so big.
Yeah.
If you know, because the camera will exaggerate you. The screen will exaggerate you. You know.
And how do you find it? Obviously, because with acting, you've got a script, and if you mess up your lines, you can go back to it. How do you find screen actors when they go to do theatre? Do they struggle remembering when they're on stage because you don't have that luxury of being able to go back and look at your lines?
Well, usually you have a lot of rehearsals. I mean, you know, a lot of community theatre groups, and WA, there's a lot of community theatre groups around. But most of them will only rehearse for a couple of months and then put their show on. I like to rehearse for a long time. I usually do minimum 6 to 7 months rehearsals, 2 nights a week for 2 or 3 hours a night. And the idea there is that I can, you know, everyone gets off script and they're polished and characters are developed and everything. I don't like shows that are done where they've only rehearsed for a couple of months, if that.
Yeah.
It's too rushed. The characters aren't developed. The acting is usually pretty weak. You know, and when you want to do a stage play, you want to be as professional as possible. You want the characters to really pop. You want the audience to sit there and be drawn into the action. You know what I mean? With film, having been an actor and a director on film, I find that when I was doing acting for screen, I could learn whatever scene we were filming that day. I could learn that the day before and just go in and do it. Whereas with theatre, you've really got to rehearse, and you learn your lines during the you know, during the 6 or whatever months that you're rehearsing for. Dracula, for example, we ended up rehearsing for 9 months. It was supposed to be 7 months, but with the lockdown back in February, we had to postpone it for 2 months. So it allowed us to work on a few bits that were troubling me for leading up to it. So yeah.
And so do you have to pay all the cast while you're rehearsing as well, or do you find they're happy?
Community theatre, no one gets paid. I don't even get paid because it's you know, not-for-profit organisation.
Yeah.
If you're doing film, it depends on if it's deferred payments, percentage of profits, or you know, which is quite often the case, is unpaid. You know, for independent.
Was Dracula a community theatre one? Because you said you did make some money back on that.
Dracula was unpaid. It was community theatre, but the money that I got back was because I invested 11.5 of my own.
Yeah, right.
That included paying for the rehearsal space and all the rest of it, the set construction, the rights, props, everything. Wardrobe, publicity. I spent a lot of money on publicity. The theatre, I paid for all of that, and then I lost about 2,000 in that one, but it's better than what happened last year. We were doing The Outsiders last year, and we opened one night to the maximum we were allowed to have in that theatre, which at that time was only 50.
Okay.
And the next day we had to actually pull the plug because of social distancing and everything, and because you had to have 2 meters between actors and everything as well, and you couldn't do that with The Outsiders. There's no way. So the fight scenes just wouldn't look right. You know what I mean?
And is that based on the film The Outsiders? That had Tom Cruise and all them in it?
Yeah, well, the film was based on the book, and the stage play was based on the book.
And was Dracula based on the book and which Dracula film?
Dracula was based on Bram Stoker's novel, which came out 1897. So yeah, the novel came out.
So where do you acquire the rights for that? Do you get the script written up, or do you have to approach the people that wrote the book? Because I know with public domain, I can't remember the exact year. It's either 50 or 100 or 70 years after the death of the author, it becomes available to the public for free. So did you have to acquire the rights from the people that wrote the book?
Not from the people who wrote the book. If it's already adapted into a stage play, you pay rights to the stage to the playwright.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I take it they didn't have any problems with you doing that?
No, not at all. Not at all. So.
Okay. So how long? So you've just finished Dracula. How long is it usually between the next play that you'll do? Obviously, you got to get the money together, but
normally I take a month off to relax and recover and just chill out. But because Dracula was supposed to open in February, we had advertised the auditions, and I'd locked all the auditions in for March, and then we had to postpone Dracula for 2 months because of the lockdown. In the meantime, I'd already cast for our next play, which is Wait Until Dark, and so we had to. I had to split the rehearsal. So Monday nights we were rehearsing for Dracula, and Friday nights we were rehearsing for Wait Until Dark.
Oh, so you had 2 going at once then?
Yeah, 2 at once, and I tell you what, that's really painful, really painful. Yeah. I don't know how. I know there's a lot of actors out there that will rehearse 2 plays at once, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't understand how they can do that, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's hard even with film. Like they might have 2 or 3 short films on the go, and they're getting ready to act in one, but then you try to get them together, and they're already committed to another one. So
exactly.
Which I understand. I know they want to build the resume, but I think if you commit to something, you should. And maybe they get paid for one and don't get paid for the other, but still, I think if you commit to something, you should stick to that one thing until it's done, I guess.
I agree 100%. We had one of our cast members was in a play for the Short and Sweet Play Festival.
Okay.
And I'm thankful that his play didn't progress through the festival, didn't get into the finals, because the finals were when we were performing Dracula.
Oh, okay.
I actually said to him, I said to him, what would you have done? He said, I've no idea. I said, next time you're doing a play, check. If you're going to do 2 plays, you've got to find out all the details of the second play so that you're not clashing, you know?
Yeah, okay. And so also, how do you find working around like actor availability? Because I had some issues when I did Black Ghost where we had certain scenes we wanted to shoot, and I understand that we're getting paid, but most of it was all on weekends, and I had to move a certain scene around three separate times to try and fit a weekend in, and I got to the point where I just recast because I said, look, I can't keep working around you guys. You know, do you find many problems with that?
I find problems when it comes to film rather than theatre.
Okay.
I mean, I've got a condition with our with the community theatre group that I run, that they have to attend at least 80% of rehearsals.
Yeah.
You know, I get it. Sometimes something comes up, you know, or you're sick, or there's a family emergency, or you have to work or something, and that's fine. You know, but you know, as long as you're there for most of the rehearsals, and of course then you've got the production. And I say to people when it's coming up to production week, right, try and get time off from your regular work. See if you can take the week off for holiday or whatever. But you need to be at the theatre at this time, ready for makeup and wardrobe, ready to go on stage at this particular time. Film, if they're not being paid, if it's deferred payments, or if it's standard independent film where it's voluntary, whatever, student film, whatever, you need to adjust to the actors, unfortunately, because they do have their work commitments. You know, they've got to put food on the table as well. So you've got to make sure that what their normal income is covered, so that they're actually getting they're not going to go hungry, or their rent's not going to allow, you know, and they're not going to get kicked out of the home or whatever. So
yeah, I'm never really. I mean, I did a bit of theatre at school. I was in Pirates of Penzance and Kismet, but I've always sort of lent towards film. I guess it's just, I don't know, it maybe because I wasn't when I did acting, I wasn't confident enough to not have that script there as a fallback, if you know what I mean. So I never really acted much in theatre, and I've never actually really thought about getting into the theatre industry. I wouldn't know what's involved. I know there's a lot of, obviously, like you said, a lot of rehearsals, a lot of preparation. Do you think there's more prep doing that than there is film?
I actually think there's more preparation required for film, because you've got your location scouts. You've got to scout for your locations. You've got to make sure all your permits are in place. You've got to do all your scheduling. You've got to do, you know, there's a lot more involved in filming, I think, rather than theatre. Theatre, you've got to secure a rehearsal space, you've got to cast, you've got to build the sets, and publicity, and then putting the show on. There's not as much preparation in theatre as there is in film. That's my opinion. Anyway.
And I suppose with theatre, you don't need as many crew-wise. Like you probably wouldn't have first AD. Obviously, you got makeup, but you probably wouldn't have obviously DP or anything like that. So you could really do it, I guess, on a minimal crew, because you do have do you have a stage manager when you do it, or do you do that as well?
I do. I usually have an assistant director who is also the stage manager. Assistant director, quite often I may be focusing on one aspect of the play, and ask the assistant director to go and rehearse with a couple of other people for other scenes that they're in, and also the of course, the stage manager, assistant director, and stage manager, they have to understand all the lighting cues and the audio cues, so that they can communicate with the tech person. Because usually with theatre, as soon as the dress and tech rehearsal are finished, it all gets handed over to the assistant director or the stage manager to run, while the director sits back and just watches. So,
okay, and how long is a theatre? Like, how long was Dracula? An hour, hour and a half? Well, what's the usual running time for a play like that?
a stage play per performance. Well, Dracula was 2.5 hours with a 15-minute intermission.
Okay. Yeah, right. So does the intermission, is that just to allow to move sets around and get costume change and that sort of thing?
It can be, or it could be to let the audience go and stretch their legs if it's a long play, like Dracula was. You need to give a break for the audience to be able to go and stretch their legs. I mean, imagine sitting through the film Titanic without an intermission.
Yeah.
I know when Titanic was in the cinemas, they had an intermission because that was a 3.5 hour film, and you can't expect audience to sit there for 3.5 hours. Especially after having a pint of Coke, whatever, a large drink of Coca-Cola, and popcorn, all the rest of it. They're going to be sitting there cross-legged about halfway through the film.
So which theatre do you usually use? Because you says a community one, yeah.
When I've done here in WA, I've put on 4 shows already. We did the Breakfast Club, Love and Music, The Outsiders, and Dracula. Love and Music, because it was an original play, and I was really nervous about getting a lot of audience. We used a smaller theatre. We used one in Maylands, and the other 3 we put on at Coolini Arts Centre in Kwinana.
All right, yeah. Is that on excuse me? Is that on Gilmore Road, Gilmore Drive, or whatever?
Alpha Road, just near Gilmore.
Oh yeah, okay, yep. Yeah, right. And so if you had a chance, obviously you got the opportunity to do something full time, would you prefer film or theatre if you were to make a living out of it, or would you combine both?
If I can make a living out of it, well, there'd be more money in film if you if it was paid, because you got your streaming networks, you've got your Netflix, Stan, all the rest of it. You've got DVDs and Blu-rays, even though DVDs seem to be diminishing, but the Blu-rays, you've got 4K discs now, which are just the same as what the HD used to be, which got squashed because of Blu-rays. TV, all of that sort of thing. So so that I think there's more money in film. In theatre, though, it depends. I mean, I'd love to take Fremantle Performing Artists and turn it into a professional theatre company. I have been told many times that the company is a professional theatre company operating as a community theatre group.
Okay.
It means that I put on professional looking shows with but it's a not-for-profit organisation, so I can take it to professional level, but for that you need backers, you need people to invest money in it, you need to make sure that your sets are looking really spiffy and all the rest of it,
And I suppose in a way that's a little bit like film as well. Obviously, you put your own money into the theatre, but to get a lot of the projects funded that we do, we try to run crowdfunders, and funding's always been a problem for film as well. So, I guess like you said, to take it to the professional level, you need to have the backing, but you also sort of need to do that in film as well. Because when we did the proof of concept for a version, there was no money there. We just did a Friday, Saturday, and come home on a Sunday. So we've got the feature script being done now. But if that doesn't get funding, we're going to have to put it on the back burner, because we want to pay everyone. We can't expect them to come up every weekend and film, because the venue's not available every weekend. It's a wedding venue. So even if we got funded, we have to do a Sunday night to a Thursday morning, and then that's it until the next Sunday. So I guess the funding's an issue for both industries, I guess, with film and theatre.
Yeah, there's always funding issues. I mean, to put on professional theatre, it's expensive. I mean, I know one theatre group here. They put on The Producers recently.
I saw that going around.
Yeah, and they put that play on at the what's it called, the Regal Theatre in Subiaco.
Yep.
And they spent $50,000 on it.
Yeah, right.
So that's sets, props,
paying everyone.
Well, that was a community theatre group, so they didn't pay anyone, but they had to pay the Regal, and I think the Regal's expensive. But if you want to put on a stage play that's going to run for a while and it's going to draw a lot of attention, you really want it in a decent theatre. You don't want to use some Autumn Centre, for example, that has this dicky little stage and a 100-seat theatre. You want to use a somewhere that holds 500 people, for example, would be ambitious, but for something like The Producers, 500 would probably be achievable. 500-seat theatre. If you had that, you could easily fill that. It depends on the show. I mean, if we were to put on, if a theatre company was to put on an Andrew Lloyd Webber production like Cats or Jesus Christ Superstar or Phantom of the Opera and do it properly, it could run for a long time. I mean, Phantom of the Opera ran in Melbourne for at least 10 years, I think it was, and so did Cats. They were professional theatre groups, professional companies, not community theatre. But the only difference between community theatre and professional theatre is money.
Yeah. And so, do you feel that you could make, if you're doing it, if you're doing a feature, even if it's not funded, you could probably average one, maybe two in a year. How many plays do you think you could do in a year compared to film?
Film, I could probably do. I don't do film one film a year. I do a film every few years because there's so much work to go into it.
Yeah.
And money and all the rest of it. Film is expensive to do. But theatre, normally I would do one production a year. But we aim to do two. Wait Until Dark, we are putting on at the end of this year. We started rehearsing Dracula, I think it was July last year. We didn't put it on until April. And then we started rehearsing Wait Until Dark in March, and we're putting that on around about November. So we're doing two this year, but usually I only put one on a year.
Do you think you'll redo The Outsiders again, since you only got one
I'd
show?
love to do The Outsiders again. I've still got the sets in the storage. The only reason we didn't go back post-COVID, the only reason we didn't go back to doing The Outsiders was because two of our lead cast members were doing year 12 at the time.
Okay.
And so they couldn't once all the restrictions were lifted and isolation was lifted, and theatres were opening again, they couldn't come back to do it at that time, which was a real shame, because we had young kids in there as well, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, when are we going to put? When are we coming back to do The Outsiders? When are we coming back to do The Outsiders?" And as soon as restrictions were lifted, and I said, "All right, we can start rehearsing again. We need to do a few rehearsals just to get, the feel of it again." And these two, one was playing Pony Boy, and the other one, which is the lead, and the other one was playing Cherry, who's basically the female lead. They both said, "Brenton, we can't do it because of year 12. We've got to concentrate on school." So, yeah, it was unfortunate. But
And where do you do most of your casting? Do you use Star Now, or do you just go through?
I will never use. I won't use Star Now.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that. I tend to hit up people I've used before, whether it be on Facebook or whatever it is, and then if worst comes to worst, I need extras, I might go through Star Now, because, like I was saying last week to Demetrius, a lot of the problem I find with Star Now is most of the people have agents, and obviously the agents want to get involved and have some sort of payment, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I usually either hit people up that I've used before, or I just put a call out on PFC and usually get it that way. How do you go about doing it?
Well, I run several Facebook groups. I run Casting Calls Australia. I go to I've got Western Australian Acting. Was it Western Australian Actors Meetup Group? I also run a Melbourne Actors Meetup Group and Sydney Actors Meetup Group. But I don't tend to post much in the Melbourne and Sydney one anymore. Obviously, when I was living in Melbourne, I was posting a lot in the Melbourne one, and I did cast my last movie through Melbourne Actors Meetup Group. But I tend to just go on Facebook and just advertise in all the different theatre groups and all that. Like I said, Casting Calls Australia, and there's others. There's Perth Performing Arts Hub or something, and there's a lot of different Facebook groups dedicated to casting. There's one called Never Enough Men, or Not Enough Men, or something, which is basically male actors looking for opportunities, whether it's film or theatre. So if I've got male roles that I need to fill, quite often I go straight there and advertise in there first. But yeah, that's Theatre WA is another good one.
Okay. And how did you find, obviously, because you said you did theatre in Melbourne, how do you find the theatre community in Melbourne compared to Perth? Is it bigger? Is it harder to get venues or get productions put together?
I found a lot of the Melbourne theatres, community theatres, were very, very small. They were really definitely community theatre establishments. There were a few that were really good, but I find the performing arts centres here, like Coolini Arts Centre and Kalamunda Performing Arts Centre, I find them to be very professional-looking establishments. Like I said, I love performing at Coolini Arts Centre in Kwinana. It's one of the best venues I've ever seen. So,
and what's the seating capacity for that?
200 and full capacity there is 250, I think. That's their maximum capacity. But they do have a table set up for for audio. They've got a lighting and audio booth, but they also have a table set up in front of that, which makes it easier for them. So that takes away a few seats, but about 230 maximum, really.
And what was your capacity for Dracula?
The first two performances of Dracula are at 75%. So my maths is dreadful.
About 200 roughly, or 180.
We'll say roughly 200. Whereas the Saturday matinee and the closing night performance, it was 100%, and so that was 230. We had, or 200 we had in there for the closing night. That was a full house. The matinee, even though it was 100% permissible, we found that matinees usually only get about 50% attend. So,
excuse my ignorance, what's the difference between a matinee and a closing show?
So matinee is in the afternoon.
Okay.
You very rarely close on a matinee. You usually close of an evening show. I know there is one theatre group in Maylands that will run a matinee as their final show, and that's just unprofessionalism, though.
Okay. Just why is it too? Because it's an afternoon, you don't get as many people. Is that why?
You don't get as many people, mind you. That's only 100 seat theatre anyway, when it's 100% capacity. But they rush their productions. They're and it's a very small stage. It's a 4-meter stage. It's ridiculous.
Oh, okay. So what films have you done?
Directing wise?
Yeah.
I directed oh God, this has gone back a long time. I directed a film called Help Is On Its Way. And later I did a thriller called that was a drama. Then I did a thriller called The Runner. Unfortunately, they were pre-digital, and the only copies I had were on celluloid, and ex-wife decided to burn them. She was a cow. But yeah, then of course Deal.
Okay.
I don't know if you can read my T-shirt. It says I'm the director. Deal with it. And Iniquitous. Iniquitous is still in pre-production. I had issues there with the location scout. We were going to film it in Melbourne, or outside Melbourne. Actually, we had a beautiful locations in a little town called Dalesford in country Victoria. It's absolutely perfect. It had every location we needed. It was beautiful, and the townsfolk were all prepared, and a lot of them were going to be extras in the film, and it was all exciting, and we were going to put Dalesford on the map. And my location scout, we were doing some fundraising activities, and location scout decided that she would open a bank account for the funds from the fundraising activities, and she put all the money into the bank account. And when I asked her for it, she said, "Oh, I already gave you that." I said, "Oh, no, you didn't." So she actually embezzled the funds that we raised from it. So then, of course, I moved from Melbourne to Perth, and I've decided that I'm going to film it here with a whole new cast, whole new locations, whole new crew. So
what's that about? What genre is that?
It's a psychological thriller.
Nice.
It's about 4 people. Each of them have personal problems that they struggle to deal with. But they all know this one woman who seems to make things work for them, or gives them advice, or the rest of it. And what they don't realize is she's actually a sociopath, and she plays them all off against each other, destroys all of their lives.
Nice.
Yeah, it is a really good, like I said, it's a psychological thriller. It was originally going to be a horror thriller, supernatural thriller using the devil, but someone said to me, "Oh, the devil's a throwaway. Don't do the devil, do a sociopath." So a lot of rewriting, many drafts of the screenplay to get it perfect. But yeah, it's there. It's looking good. It's looking good.
So when do you think you might be getting that up and running?
I've got to get a producer for that one. I have sent the script off to a couple of producers in Sydney. They're actually a team. They run a business together, and I've sent the script off to them with an elevator pitch. Haven't heard back from them yet, but I'm hoping that they will come on board. They usually do horror.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they will come on board and produce the thing. Otherwise, it's just a case of I've met a lot of film crew here in Perth since I've been here, and I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get some of them on board. DP, grips, all the rest of it. And even if I have to produce the thing myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got a lot of crew that I use regularly. Like I've got first AD, makeup artist, all that sort of thing. So if you ever need anyone, just let me know, because they're more than willing to work on different projects and things like that.
Cool, man.
So and if you need someone to help produce, I'm happy to help you with that. I'm co-producing this one for Aaron's feature film that we're doing, the low budget one.
Yep.
So I'm happy to help out with that. And I co-produced a couple of shorts that we did, because my first AD wanted to get into producing. So I said, yeah, all right, I'll co-produce with you, and gave her a chance to do that. So, and I'm happy to do it just to build up my resume. I'm not expecting to get paid for it. It's just something that I'm still getting experience as I'm doing it. And I like to work with different directors or writers or whatever the case may be, and just to see it. I like being on different sets, see how they work, and that type of thing. But no, it sounds interesting. Are you going to be using? Obviously, you said all local cast. What's the rough age range that you're looking at?
For the main cast would be 18 to 50.
Okay.
Yeah. Roughly. Give or take a few years. And
is it like mainly male or female, or is it a mixture of both?
It's a good mix, actually. It's a really good mix. I'm hoping to film that. I'm actually hoping to film that pretty soon. I actually said to my partner the other night that I'd like to get filming that. I'd like to film that as soon as possible, because my little boy is about to turn 1, and there's a role in it for a baby, and I'm like, yeah, he could easily fit. He could easily fit that character, and he's a bloody good looking kid too. That's not, he must take after his mother, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, you're on my friends list. You've seen photos of my little boy, I'm sure. So, I really see him. I'd really like to see him later in life doing acting. I'd love to. I'll encourage him if I won't force him into it, but I will always encourage him. So I want to use him in this film. otherwise I have to get someone with a baby to allow us to film their baby. So that's the hard part too.
You could do what they did on that movie Sniper with Bradley Cooper. You could just get a doll and he moved the hand with his finger. You could just do that.
Yeah, but apparently that looked really bad.
It did, and you
I haven't seen that.
Just record a cry.
I haven't seen that film, but apparently it looked really bad that it was a doll.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So Demetrius asked me last week what I prefer, because I did some acting before. Do I prefer to act or be on the other side of the camera? And I said I just only be purely because of people my size, it's harder to get roles. What do you prefer? Do you prefer to act or direct?
I do like both. I used to do a lot of acting and I loved acting, but I prefer to direct and maybe play a cameo now and then. Okay. Like in Iniquitous, I'm going to be playing a cameo. I'm going to play a bank manager who's basically one scene. It's like 3 lines. And I really, when it's a small character like that, I don't feel that it's fair to cast someone and have them go through everything and preparation, character development and everything just for one scene that's, a handful of lines. When we did The Breakfast Club back in 2018, whenever it was, I played the father of one of the students in that, Molly Ringwald's character. If you know The Breakfast Club, the movie.
Yep.
Molly Ringwald played a character called Claire. Well, I played her father in that, and it was like, 2 lines, and I just couldn't justify casting someone and all the rest of it, having them go to rehearsals for such a small role. So I tend to play a cameo now and then. I call it my Hitchcock moment, because Hitchcock, of course, was always in, he was in every one of his films as an extra, usually in the crowd or on the street or something. So playing the bank manager, which is one scene with 3 lines, that's my Hitchcock moment. I did I was in a film a few years back, The Legend of Ben Hall, which was filmed in Melbourne, which is probably one of the most expensive independent movies that I know of. I think they ended up raising $700,000 to make that movie.
Wow.
For an independent film, that's a hell of a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But it was a period piece. It was, they had to build sets. They had to build miniatures. They had to do a lot. There was a stagecoach they had to have. They had to have horse wranglers, costumes of the period, because it was 150 something years ago that it took place. It was a true story. And the director, Matthew Holmes, great guy. I'll work with him any day. He played a cameo in that as well. He had one line. There's the cops, or the traps, whatever they were called back then. They burst into a hall where the bushrangers had been, and the traps all come in, and he's right behind them, and he sees this kid acting very sheepish, and he says, "Him," and that was his whole line. He was on the screen for all of 2 seconds saying "him," it was that was a really good film, that one.
And so with extras, I've had a discussion with actors before, and there's been some that, you know, like it's either whether I've cast them or they've been cast in something else, and they were sort of set on having not so much a lead role, but more of a talking role, a bit more screen time. But the particular production said, "Oh, look, might not fit that, but would you be happy being extra?" And they flat out refused to do it because they look as an extra role as well. You know, it's nothing. But for me, having extras makes a film, and there's been a few extras that have gone on to do some decent stuff. What's your take on extras? Like, if someone wants to be an extra, do you think they should start there? A bit like on a film set, have a PA work their way up, and they can look at different departments.
If you want to just earn some money in film or television, then be an extra. There's nothing wrong with being an extra. I've been an extra. I've been an extra. I've had a lot of speaking roles, and I've directed a hell of a lot. But you know, there's nothing wrong with being an extra. Hell, you're still going to get fed. Okay, you don't get a credit. You get your food. If it's an independent film, you know, then at least you're going to get fed. If it's a paid production, you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being an extra. You also get to work with the director and meet the director, and you know, you'll be able to talk to the director, and that director is going to remember you and say, okay, we've got a role coming up for another production, you know, another project. This one's a support role. You've got dialogue. Are you interested? But look, whenever I'm directing, whenever I'm casting for a stage production, for example, I always ask the same question to every applicant. If you're not successful in a speaking role, are you, or if you're not successful in an acting role, are you prepared to work backstage? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I am surprised at how many will just turn around and go, "Oh no, I don't do that. I won't do that." You know, they're looking for the fame. They're looking for the fame, and it's not going to happen. You know, it's very rare that you're actually going to become famous through, especially Australian productions. You may, you know, I mean, it's not unheard of, but we don't have the it's not the Mad Max era anymore. You know, you don't have the 10A, what was it, the 10AB tax incentive, where the exploitation era, that's not around anymore.
No, that's right.
Which was great for making, you know, for the Australian film industry, and it got people, it made people famous. I mean, Mad Max back in 1978, 79, something like that. If it wasn't for the 10A, the 10AB tax incentive, Mad Max probably wouldn't be made. But they, you know, they didn't. None of the cast thought Mad Max was ever going to go anywhere. You know, they were offered a percentage of profits or a small fee for being in the film. The crew were paid in slabs of beer. You know, the cast, and I know a few of the cast members, but they turn around and they said, "Oh, you know, it's not gonna go anywhere. We'll take a small fee." You know, I think they were paid, you know, equivalent to $10,000 for Mad Max, and you know, they're all kicking themselves now because, you know, that's done really well. But Mad Max made Mel Gibson famous, Steve Bisley, Roger Ward, all of them famous. Hugh Keys-Byrne, of course, as well. But if you're going to if you're only starting out in the industry, there is nothing wrong with being an extra. There's, and if you or being helping out on the crew, doing student films or anything like that. If you have a history of speaking roles and you've got a lot of experience behind you, then okay, I can understand. But you really need to, you should, if you're offered an extra role, at least you're going to get to work with the director, and the director's going to be able to cast you, and then another is going to know that you were so keen to be on that production that you will you're easy to work with. Now I started telling you about how I always ask similar question in theatre, and I always say, if you're not successful, are you willing to work backstage? The reason I ask that is either that actor hasn't given a good audition, or I want to see how much that actor actually wants to be part of the production, whether it's as a crew member or as a cast member. I had one actor I was auditioning for a stage play a few years back. We were going to do To Sir With Love. This particular actor, he came along and he gave the worst audition I've ever seen. It was so wooden. It was so there was no emotion. It was like he wasn't reading. He'd memorized his lines, but he just could not act. And I just said to him, I said, are you, if you're not successful, are you willing to work backstage? He said, oh no, I'm an actor. And I just knew straight away there was no way I'd ever cast this bloke, because it was really bad audition, but it wasn't his passion. I knew he would be a hard person to work with because of his attitude,
Yeah.
So,
I think part of the problem as well is that Perth's so small that if you do reject certain roles, unless, like you said, you've done a number of speaking roles, that it's going to be hard for you to get cast unless you do student films. And one of the second short films that I ever did when I started acting, it was weird. I was just used to helping out on sets because obviously some sets have minimal crew and things like that. So when my takes were done and they wanted to move stuff, I was grabbing lights and sandbags. I said, no, don't move, don't do that. That's not what the actors do. I'm like, but you're short on crew. They said, no. If you hurt yourself, then we're not going to have an actor. And so it was just second nature to help out, because having low productions, that's usually what you do. But I found that interesting. Even when I was an extra on Son of a Gun, we were having, the scene was originally, I don't know if you've seen Son of a Gun, but when they get out of jail and they pull up to like a cafe in Freo there, and the big dude with the red hair goes into the cafe. Originally, it was me and another guy sitting there, and then I'd walk in as the dude with the red hair would walk out. But in the film, it's a bit. They had a massive crane. It wasn't a drone. It was a crane shot. So you can just sort of make out me and the guy, and another one of my mates was leaning against the truck. So, but that was a really good experience. We got a decent fee. We got paid for it, which didn't bother me either way. And Ewan McGregor's not as tall as I thought he was. I didn't even recognize him. He come out of the trailer with his beard on, leather jacket. I go, "Where's Ewan?" They said, "That's in there." I'm like, "Oh, okay." The only thing that did happen was some guy took a photo. It was an extra of Ewan, and Ewan said, "You're going to have to delete that unless you get permission to take it." He didn't go off it. He just sort of let him know that on those sort of sets, you need permission to take photos of those particular actors. But
always ask.
Yeah, that's right.
Always ask.
And I mean, I don't mind actors and that taking films, photos on my set, but of more of the setup, not of the actual takes or what's happening in the film. Like, if you're sitting at the table getting ready for a take, that's fine, because I don't like it to be given away certain scenes. Like, we might release some behind the scenes photos that are going on, but what you were saying about, I found as well with Black Ghost, a lot of people, you ask them, they say no, they don't want to be interested. But then when we released Black Ghost, we used Luna, and there was about 250 people come to the premiere. And then when certain people that didn't want to be involved in the project found out that was happening, they all of a sudden they started contacting us, say, what can we do to be involved? And it's like, well, they want to come out of the woodwork now that it's happening and stuff like that. And so I find it's kind of, they want to be involved for the glory, but they don't want to do all the hard work to get there. And for me, I mean, I'm happy to be an extra in anything. You know, it like the other day, Steve Balker, who runs In 5, which is a similar show to this, but he does it at his house. He was doing a comedy, and I just went and was an extra in that because I still like to keep my hand in acting, a bit like you with Black Ghost. I had a small role in that, and another one called Death and a Little Girl. I played a father in that, but I don't want to do any lead roles or anything like that. If they need someone to fill a certain role, I'm happy to do that for little bits of dialogue. But I actually really enjoy the process of making them. And I suppose an advantage I don't know if it's an advantage over theatre, but obviously with film, once it's all done, you've got months and months of post-production. And then the actors are always contacting you going, oh, is it ready yet? Can we have footage for our show reel? It's like, we can have unedited footage, but when they finish on a project, they can go straight to another one. Whereas a lot of the creatives are always stuck, at least for months, getting it finished. So I suppose in theatre, you'd have an advantage where you don't really have to worry about that, eh?
Yeah. Well, Michael Caine talked about that as well in his masterclass. Someone said to him, look, I don't know if Michael Caine's ever directed anything, but they actually asked him if he would, at that stage, he hadn't directed anything, and they asked him, would he ever consider directing? And he said, probably not. He said, because with directing, you've got, once the cameras stop rolling, you've got at least a year of work to do. He said, when you're an actor, once the cameras stop working, you can then go on to another project and you can have a steady income from it. And I mean, Michael Caine's one of the A-lists, but I mean, there's the old adage too, filmmaking, actually filming the movie is only 10% of it.
Yep.
You've got 90% of stuff that the actors do not see. Your post-production, your pre-production, all of that stuff is 90% of the process. Exactly right. And it can take, it can take a year, 2 years, whatever. You've got your pre-production, which is all your planning, and that's a headache. You've got a lot of stuff to do when you're pre-production. Your post-production, that's color grading everything and editing everything, and you may have to do pickup shots. If something didn't work out, if there was a hair trapped in the gate of the camera or whatever, you've got to go back and refilm film that scene. You've got to do sometimes you've got to do the voiceovers. Right now I can't think of the name of it. ADR, thank you.
Yep.
You've got to do some of that. I mean, Marlon Brando was famous for that, especially in The Godfather. He because he didn't want to learn his lines, he would actually mumble on set.
Yeah, right.
And they filmed it, and then they got him into the studio, into the ADR studio, to do all his voice work.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, it was. But I mean, I'll do student films still. As if they're looking for an actor and they come to me and say, hey, listen, you've got the look, I'd like you to be in a student film, I'll go and do it. It's probably never going to be seen by anyone except for their lecturer, or their colleagues, their fellow students, or a film festival maybe. But I'll go and do it, because the way I see it is, that's someone who they're going, when they do make it as a professional director or whatever, they're going to remember who helped them out, and so yeah, I still do student films and that every now and then. I'll do extra work, I'll do all of that stuff. But yeah, post-production is filmmaking is a big process. As you said, actors can go from one production to another. They might be on in a production for maybe 3 months, in a project for 3 months, and then they go on to another one for 3 months, and then another one for 3. They can do 4 films in a year.
Yeah,
the director usually does one.
Yeah, I mean, it's and a lot of people, like you say, sometimes it takes a year. Sometimes a lot of actors, they want to know where it is, and so you tend to get rushed, and it's like it might only take 3 or 6 months, and you get to the point where you just want to get it out to get them satisfied. So you either lose production value or you have to take out stuff that would normally be in a production. But on a lot of the films, like Aversion and things like that, we've had a lot of crew double up. So my first AD was also production manager. I was running slate. We're not going to talk about what happened with one of the slates, but I opened the wrong way, but we were filming at night time, so we were starting at 6 p.m. and going to 4 or 5 in the morning, and it was very cold. The actors were tired, but they still. The thing with the group of actors that I use is they're very passionate. So even if it is low, they're tired, they will still put in their best effort because they want to see it. Like you said, they want to see it come to fruition, and there might be just that one person watching that's saying, we can tell these people are tired, but they're still going for it,
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time we wear extra hats. Like this film I'm co-producing with Aaron Camp. It's minimal crew, so we've literally got maybe 4 crew, and I might run slate, I might do something else, and so we're all sort of like Aaron's directing, editing, and running camera, sort of thing, and so it's sort of what you got to do because you don't have the luxury. I mean, even if we get funded for a version, that budget's not a big budget, so we'll get probably the minimum. So like makeup, you might only have 2 makeup artists, or you might have the camera operator on the first day. So you're not able to fill every department. But that's what, like, even our makeup artist on Aversion, she was helping out with costume, and she was helping out with set design and doing different things. And our DP, he actually made a full lighting rig. He made the full boom with the umbrella to go over the table. And we had that on set. He actually made that the weekend before and brought it to set. And then when we wanted to move the lights, we had the PAs, myself, and the DP, we were moving the lights over. So everyone was stepping up. And with the industry, the way Perth is so small, I think that's what has to happen. But I've been on some sets where they just won't do that. They'll just be like, no, I'm not doing anything. This is all I do. And it's good being on the other side of the camera because you see some people are just there because they want to be or they have to be, regardless whether you're getting paid or not, and their heart's not in it. They're like, I'm just going to do this film and go. But then you see others that are like, want to learn, or they're interested, and they're sort of the ones that I keep in the back of my mind and say, okay, next production I want this person, because although they might not know what they're doing that much, they're enthusiastic. They want to learn. Like if they're a PA and they don't know, maybe they have to go get water for everybody or whatever the case may be, they know they've got to do something, and so they ask it, and I'll keep them on. But other ones that are just there and you can see that they're on their phone or they're bored or they're doing whatever, they're kind of the ones that I sort of put on the back burner unless I get desperate for crew. And so that's with me. Well, that's why I'm trying to keep a core crew as much as I can, and sort of a core set of actors, because I know if I've got something ready, then I can hit those people up. If they're not available, then I'll go other ways. But I like that's one advantage of being on the other side of the camera, is you do get an idea of who's interested, who you can add to your crew, and that sort of thing. And I enjoy the process of it. Like you said, I mean, if we get a version funded, I've got Aaron's film, which is May, June, July, and then the investor is looking at us filming a version in August. That'll be 2 feature films back to back, basically. And we're filming mainly weekends with Aaron, so Friday, Thursday, Friday, or Friday, Saturday. And I said to Aaron, because Aaron will be directing, if it goes ahead during the week, we'll be pre-production for a version. So if that happens, there's not going to be much sleep. But that's how it is. Even if you're not getting paid, you should be doing it for the passion of it. And because when I was doing Black Ghost, we had a booth set up at Supernova just to see how we go. And we had quite a few people that went to film school, and they asked if they could come on board just as interns to learn different departments. Yeah. And when they got on set, they said, I can't believe I spent $4,000 at film school. I said, what do you mean? They go, you learn so much more when you're on set, like jumping in the deep end, than you do there. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I mean, I wouldn't go to film school just because I think I don't see it as a benefit, but a lot of people have done that.
Film school.
No, and a lot of people can't believe how they waste their money at film school. It's good for some people, not good for others. But what's your take on film school? Obviously, you haven't been there, but would you recommend people go there or just get out there and do it hands on?
I would say go out there, do it hands on. I mean, you learn a lot by watching other people. I mean, you don't want to go out there and be top brass straight up.
Yeah.
Go out there and be, a best boy or
a PA or something like that.
Go out there and do the clapper, whatever. Be a unit manager, whatever. But just to get some experience, and you can learn just by talking to people who are in the industry, who are on the set. You can talk to them, and you can learn from them. I was 10 years old, and I wanted to be an actor, and I nagged my parents to let me. I saw an ad. This was back in Adelaide. I grew up in Adelaide. I was 17. I moved to Melbourne. When I was 10 years old, I saw an ad for a Filmmakers retreat, similar to the 48-hour film challenge that they do now.
Yep.
And this was up in the Adelaide Hills. It was a long weekend. It was 2 days of filming, and then it was we were going to screen the films to everyone. And they wanted actors 10 and up. And I wanted to be an actor. I was so desperate to be an actor, and I nagged my parents. I said, I want to go to this. I want to go to this. Now, 1980, it only cost $20 to get rid of me for the whole weekend, right? And I think that's what my parents looked at. They said, oh, it was only $20 to get rid of you for the weekend. Yep, cool. Anyway, I went along. Dad dropped me off in the Adelaide Hills. It was about an hour outside Adelaide. And I got there, and we're sitting down in one of the organisers came up to me and said, okay, so how much acting experience have you got? So I haven't got any. I've never done it before. And they said, oh, okay. They went and had a meeting, and they came back and said, look, we can't teach you to be an actor in a weekend. There's no way. You can't learn to be an actor straight up. Sometimes some people are born with it. Some people, it takes a while to learn.
Yeah.
They said, so what we're going to do, we're actually going to teach you to direct. And I said, I'm 10 years old. They said, that's all right. We'll make you short films. They said, that's all right. They said, look, this bloke said to me, I'm going to be right next to you and making sure that you do everything right. He said, I will guide you. I will teach you during the next 2 days. I will teach you how to actually direct your film, 3-point lighting, everything, and I made my first short film when I was 10 years old, and I loved it. And I loved it so much that the next time they were doing it, I went back and I did it again. And I did it as a director, not as an actor, because I just loved directing so much. I made a dramatic short film, and then I made a short horror film the second time. So it was fun. It was fun.
I tried a bit of directing. I did Slice. I bought the script off Jason, and thought I'd give directing a go. But yeah, it was literally on the fly. It was a Saturday and a Sunday. No, actually, we got it all done on a Saturday. We filmed one scene in the morning and one at night time. And my DP's like, what shot are we getting? I said, because I didn't know camera angles or anything like that. I said, I don't know. What do you reckon? He goes, why don't we do this? We did that. And it turned out it's a fun little film. It's okay. But I realized I prefer to produce, and I'd rather play to my strengths. I mean, if I really wanted to direct, I probably could. Yeah. But, when you're on set as well and you're trying to do a lot of other things, the last thing you want to do is not add another string to your bow, but add something else that takes my focus away from what I really want to do. But when I was young, I used to, when I was at the cinemas, I always thought for some reason, because you know how you've got the screen and you've got the shelf at the bottom and all the exit doors, I always thought the actors were there and they were acting behind the screen, and then they would leave on the night out through the door. And I was maybe 12 or something, and I'd say that to friends. They're like, you realize it doesn't happen that way. And then I was a little bit disappointed. But yeah, it was one of those things you don't know, and you think they're there, and then they just leave out through the door. So it was because I was always into it, but I just didn't know how they were made.
Yeah.
And I played music for a while, so I'm a drummer, but I've stopped. I haven't played for about 10 years. I lost interest when our band broke up. I just didn't have anywhere to set up because I got quite a big kit. And then I took a bit of a break in 2010. I went to America for a Kentucky tour, and so I stopped took a break from the filming and all that sort of thing. And then when I come back, I got back into it more with the End and Black Ghost and that, and I've sort of given the music away now, and I just focus more on the filmmaking side of things.
Yeah. But I help out, whenever I'm on a set. I'll do anything that they ask me to do, whether I helped out a friend in Melbourne. Luke Lorna, his name is. He's a fellow director, very passionate film director. He's a brilliant film director, and I went and did audio for him. He had the equipment. I just did it all. Cans, boom.
Yep.
The radio mics, everything, and I did all of that for him for this film he was doing. When I was on the set for on location, I should say, for The Legend of Ben Hall. Originally my scene, because I was only in one scene for that, but we were going to film my scene on the Sunday, and I was there from the Friday, so I was unit manager for the Saturday. My scene on the Sunday got delayed because there were issues with the horse wrangler. The horse wrangler got drunk, and he called up the director at 2 o'clock in the morning and told him he wasn't coming in, and he was pissed off because he had heard a rumor that another horse wrangler was being paid more than him, which was not the case. Anyway, it delayed production by about 5 hours or something, and by the time they were ready to film my scenes, it was too late. It was like 5 p.m. The sun in Melbourne was just starting to set, and you've only got limited time if you're using sunlight. Yep. So actually, no, that was in Sydney. I was in Gundagai in Sydney, or in country New South Wales, for that. But I was unit manager, and then we ended up going down and filming my scene in Melbourne about 6 months later, and freezing cold. Even though I was wearing about 3 layers of wardrobe, heavy woolen jacket and everything, it was absolutely freezing. That it was like ice, right. But it was so much fun. But just recently, a friend of mine, actually we weren't friends at the time, but she just advertised that she was looking for crew for an independent film. And I said, yeah, look, I'll come along. I said, I'm happy. I said, look, I've done directing, I've done unit manager, I've done audio. What do you want? She said, I'll either get you to be first AD, or I'll get you to be best boy, because they didn't have anyone for either of them for the 2 days that they were filming these particular scenes. And I said, okay, cool. I said, happy to do either one. And I got down there, and she said, all right. She said, look, we've got an AD now, so I'll make you a best boy. Yep, cool. I I was best boy. I was moving stuff around. I was climbing up in, we were filming in a warehouse, and I had to climb right up to the top to this really narrow walkway to black out the windows. And,
Yeah, right.
But it was just so much fun. But I'll get involved any way I can on a project, because the way I see it, like I said, is those people will remember me.
That's right.
And you also get to meet people, and you get to learn so much. Don't go to film school. You don't have to spend all that money on film school. Go out there and work on independent films. Go out there, work on other student films, and just get some experience.
I mean, that money, I suppose, you spend on film school, $3 or $4 grand, you could actually make a film with that.
Look,
and you might not pay everybody, but it would go to it'd go towards like editing and stuff. But you could actually take that and make, because a lot of people make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 films. I think the one we're doing with Aaron, the budget's like only $7 grand or something. He's doing like a bit like the Robert Rodriguez did, that $7,000 film, and he's paying for that himself. But yeah, I mean, it's if you've got the money, just put that towards the production and feed people and stuff. But I found one other thing on set was having good comms. Like the last film I did, Death and a Little Girl, we were filming it in Bassendean somewhere, and we were down by the water, and my first AD and all that were up by where the toilets and that are, where we had units set up, and it was constantly on the phone all the time trying to get PA down or water down. So I bought a set of 2-ways off eBay, and they're right. I got 6 of them for $100. So they're nothing flash, but they've got the earpiece and all that. And I've charged them up, and they're going to be perfect to use on set, because you can just, and it's a lot easier to communicate. And sometimes I buy things like that to try and make it a little bit easier, And I feel that because I don't mind people being on the phone, but as long as it's not reflecting on the time on the film, if you're sitting there and we're ready for a take, and they're sending a message or putting a post on Instagram or whatever the case may be, I don't want to have to get to a point where it's like, no, all your phones go in a bucket here and that's it, because there are some people that might have an emergency. They might have a parent or a partner in hospital, and they need to have their phone on them. So that's why I bought them, to help out with the heads of department and the PAs, just to try and make it a little bit easier. So I like to try and make it a bit easier when we're working, because like you said, you do long days, and especially with the version, it was so cold, and we didn't want to black out. That's why we did 6 p.m. till about 5 a.m. I remember the last night that we did it, we were back at the room at about 5:30 in the morning, and just before the sun was coming up, and Aaron was sitting there having a couple of beers, and Aaron's like, goes to DP, we forgot a shot. So they ran it back across to the house at 5:30, and we had to get a specific shot of like the ceiling or something. And so Aaron's with him at like 5:45 in the morning, just shooting up on the roof, because they didn't get it. But that's what we did, and so we're able to pack up and leave by Sunday. But yeah, it's just, I find it's good to surround yourself with people that are willing to do it, because it just makes everything just go so much smoother.
Yeah. Well, I do differ from you slightly. I don't allow mobile phones.
Okay.
And if the cast member or crew member is, if they're expecting a possible emergency situation, you've got your unit manager who is in charge of all the phones, and can say, look, here's my phone. If there's an emergency, if Uncle Jim does go into hospital, or if you've got kids and if there's a problem, can you please answer the phone and come to me? Because I know that it is too tempting to sit there and Facebook and all the rest of it. And also, I don't know that phones interfere much these days, but they used to interfere with your audio equipment.
Okay.
Back in the days of analog, especially, you'd have your phone sitting next to a stereo speaker, for example, and every time a text message
or whatever it is,
it'd be but a lot of directors won't let you have your phones on you in the when you're filming. Yeah, sure. Grab your phone during a break.
Yeah.
Check messages, update your Facebook, whatever. But when you're on set, you should be 100% focused on what's happening on
that's a good point. And I was watching because I watch a lot of filmmaking channels on YouTube, and some people were saying that they go paperless now without their script. So instead of having an actual physical copy of the script tucked in your back pocket, they'll either have, like the director or the first AD, whoever, either have a phone or an iPad, and the script will be on there. And then they made the argument, well, that means if the first AD's got a phone, why can't others have a phone or an iPad or whatever? So they said they're trying to save paper, obviously, but do you think that sets will end up going paperless? Or because I'm still a big fan of highlighting scenes and writing notes next to them and things like that.
I prefer paper. I prefer paper because you can take notes on it. You know, you can do your continuity on there. You know, such and such put a cigarette in his mouth on that particular word. You write that down, you know, so that when you do a different angle, you know, it's the same sort of thing, you know.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're getting on an hour and a half, Brenton. It's been awesome having you on.
Yeah, man.
Hope it wasn't too painful for you.
No.
We unfortunately didn't have anyone interact, but I think they're busy or they'll watch it back later, but it's all right. And I'll definitely have to come on your radio show. I've got to find a Thursday that I'm not on set. I will let you know anyway. But I'm also, what's that, sorry?
I was just going to say, I may take you up on that offer with Iniquitous as well.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, I've got a series. I'm looking at doing a supernatural series. And besides a writer, I'm going to need a director as well. So I'll probably hit you up and see if you'd be interested. Might even see if you'd be interested in writing. I don't have a budget for the writing at the moment. I am going to be running a promo for a crowdfunder to try and get some. But it's just the pilot that I want to get done first. And it's basically about a supernatural police force that there's different supernatural. There's a witch. There's a couple of vampires who are cops, that sort of thing. And the premise is that obviously these vampires don't sparkle. All right, and
thank God
they can't go out during the day. They can only go out at night. So, but what they do is they tend to, when they pull over the criminals, that's how they feed. They feed off the criminals. And the witch, the witch who's the captain, she sort of knows about it and that type of thing. And so there's another 3 characters I have to get for the police force because I want to make it 6 all up, but I don't know whether to give them just abilities, like or have them as full supernatural beings. Like I want to have a necromancer, and there's a couple other ones that I have, and then I'm looking at having a warlock, which obviously is a male witch, who knows about what's going on and knows about them all and is essentially hunting them and things like that. So that's I'm getting the 3 main actors together to do a photo shoot with them in character, and then I also want them to do a pitch to video in character as well to use as a crowdfunder, because I was watching a lot of people who do crowdfunding and they said the rewards you offer, like DVDs, posters, whatever the case may be, that you can have them at a premiere and people can just buy them as merchandise. A lot of people don't want to have to wait for postage or whatever. So what some people do is similar to a bit like an investor's contract in a way. If someone wants to put in $100, it's okay. You put in $100, we'll give you a special thank you, or we'll promote your business, whatever. Put in 500, you get associate producer. So the money they put in, their names are getting on the film. So they're actually contributing more to the film that way. And they've found they've been a little bit more successful doing that than actually offering physical rewards. So I might even look into something like that and just see how that would work, because it's very hard to get funding this way. But yeah, it was great having you, Brenton. And again, I'll chat to you about the projects and stuff. And for those of you who are watching this back, I'll get Brenton to send me all the links to his theatre or whatever he's done. If you want to contact him for projects or whatever, I'll link them all below. If you do have any questions or anything you want to post up later, I'm sure Brenton will watch it back and answer you. But it was awesome to speak to you. I would shake your hand, but we're not there. And I'll definitely chat to you soon, and I'll hope to get on to your radio station as well.
Cheers, man.
No worries.